We are back. GPS to God. We are glad that you are back with us. We're going to get this thing rocking and rolling. Daniel Sanders, Stefano Patterson, Ryan Gotro, Ty Dean back with us live and in person, not just on the phone. So
That's right.
He's got a shirt he wants to show off.
Yep.
Absolutely.
My 1 year anniversary gift.
Yes.
We're going to get this in full view of the camera, no microphones blocking. It is a T-shirt that says, I Heart Savannah.
Yep.
And if you don't know, that is the name of his wife. She's been on here before. Check out those episodes. Life Hacks. That was
He told me he had that shirt customly made for him
No, we were walking
to
downtown
show his
Savannah.
true love.
We actually just walked past the Forrest Gump bench. Well, the bench isn't there anymore, but
Really?
the spot. Because where they filmed it, they put a bench there. Like, that's not an actual bus stop so they put a bench there, and they actually put it in like a bed of flowers now, and looks like it would have been still, like the way it's kind of, the square is kind of built. It looks like they just threw a bench there and kind of cleared out an area for it. So we walked past that spot, and then on a window, she saw like one of those like trendy gift shop from Savannah gift shops, and it said, I Heart Savannah inside or something like that. And she was like, I'm getting that. And I was like, okay. Sure thing.
But you thought it was for her, and she was like, nope, joke's on you. It's for you.
I'm getting you that.
I was going to ask, did you get one or two? Like, you just have one?
No,
for
it's just
Okay.
one.
All right, there you go. Yeah. But,
Double
man,
meaning.
we got that going on. We got lots going on here. We're glad you're back with us. We're going to wrap up the book of James tonight, part 2 of 2, and we'll get to that here shortly. But first, check us out on Instagram. Go to YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Tell somebody else you know, love, like, or don't like. Tell them to go check it out. Let them subscribe to it as well. You can email us, mailroom@gpstogod.com.
Yep.
Now, something a little... I don't know how to describe it yet. We'll describe it after it takes place. But Ty brought a bag full of challenge with him today.
A bag full of challenge.
It's the Flaming Hot Cheetos, but it's their Carolina Reaper edition. It's a new thing they're doing. So me and Savannah saw these, and we got them, and we tried them, and then she was like, you need to bring that on the podcast and let them decide what they think.
So,
I was told not to say anything, just
Yeah.
let y'all try it.
Okay, that's
you've
good.
tried
I have
them.
tried these, yes.
You have.
I like
Okay.
that. Let's go with that. I will tell you if I heart Savannah or not here in a few minutes.
Are we allowed to at least ask if he liked them or not? Not details to
No,
it. Just,
I think he has said,
you keep
he
my
has
shut.
said
Yeah,
everything
she said-
he's going to say.
Exactly.
All right,
Yeah.
deal.
No, but before we're
know if I
letting
can do
this
this.
tension build here in the moment. Ryan, you eat hot stuff. I know you
Yeah.
eat hot stuff. Fano,
Yeah.
do you eat or like hot stuff?
No.
Spicy stuff?
No, I
No.
do not.
All right.
But I mean,
Are you willing to try it?
Yeah, I guess.
Peer pressured into it. I do
Sure.
like spicy stuff to an extent.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to burn my tongue off. Teaser, we're going to be talking about some burning tongues later
There
when
you
we
go.
wap up the book of James.
Segue into James through this.
What is
little
that
challenge.
you got right there?
It's a roll of paper towels, so I don't know about these things. So we're gonna hand out some paper towels here for these flaming hot Cheetos.
He said, what's that contraption?
Fano thought I brought some food too. He's
underneath
like,
the
he's got
desk
a roll
right there,
or something
man.
over there. But I don't know what we're gonna need for these
Dude, get me one.
Carolina Reapers. Fano said the one. Get him one.
You need that one right there then.
Yeah, that big fat one.
Smell hot.
Carolina.
When I opened the bag, I was like, wow, that is.
He took a smell and started running noses.
I'm not
nose
eating all
running.
these.
Carolina Reaper Cheetos, crunchy Cheetos, which are my favorite. And Ty, while the three of us eat, you're going to have to carry the commentary here.
All right.
Are we going at the same time? Fano's got his water ready.
don't see why not.
It is
What's,
a little.
Yeah,
I
get your
do smell.
waters ready.
I mean, I was going full on.
It definitely has a different smell than the regular
Yeah.
Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Yeah, it does. It is.
Goodness gracious, man.
It's interesting.
All right.
Okay.
Y'all ready?
You ready?
1, 2, 3.
All that chewing in the microphone. If you
Yeah.
hate that sound, mute it.
I want them to get the full experience in the listening audience.
I like the flavor of it. They definitely have a little more of a punch.
It comes in light at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to build, but I'm going for number 2.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
So when we bought these,
Not bad.
I was like,
It does say
I'm actually
sweet.
okay.
That's
It
what I
does
was.
say sweet
That's what I was going
Carolina.
to say.
Yeah.
That's going to say. So we bought those, and I saw Carolina Reaper, and I love trying hot stuff. So I was like, "Oh, let's go! I'm going to get this bag." I opened it up at home. We sat there, and I was like, I tried it, and I was like, "What is this?" Because it's not hot. It's like
There's more sweet than hot.
it's not hot. It's not Flamin' Hot Cheetos. Like
Yeah.
when you think of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, you're like, okay, that's
Right.
hot. So then I saw Carolina Reaper, and I was like, oh, this is even hotter. So I went to try it. I went back and looked at the bag. It said sweet. And I looked at Savannah. I was like, these are terrible. I was like, I do not like these at all.
They have a
And
little
she was
bit
like, what
of
do you
a-
mean?
It does build. It builds, but it is a very good
But it's not-
flavor.
I think it's a great flavor. The sting kind of sticks around a little longer than
It
the other
does.
ones.
I just got stung.
But it's. I think it's something. You
I
know,
just
you
got
can
stung.
you can eat several of them. 4, 5, 6 of them. Be fine. It builds a little. You take a drink and you go back for more. We're gonna have to put these up, or I'll be crunching on these
Yeah.
for the next
You
hour.
can keep them because I didn't like them, and neither did
Oh, I'm
Savannah.
taking them
So-
home if you say I can keep them.
You can.
Me and Ryan will split them.
Yeah.
I prefer the hot over the sweet.
Fano will get 2 more and he'll be good.
no, I think I'm
See,
good.
for Doritos, I like the sweet chili, whatever, the purple
Yeah,
bag.
I don't like the
I
purple
love
bag.
those, and that's kind of that same
Yeah.
criteria, I think. Spice,
like-
but has a nice little sweet.
You know those
ting to 'em.
wings? Some places have wings that are hot, but they also have like a sweet heat to it.
Yeah.
I'm not a sweet heat fan. Like I'd rather just be
Okay.
hot.
I like the sweet heat sometimes. There's I
Yeah.
think it's Lay's brand, maybe, potato chips, and they have a sweet Southern heat barbecue or something
I
like
do
that.
like barbecue, like buffalo barbecue. I like that mix, but I don't know something about just sweet and heat. I don't know. It's just
Since we're on the topic of food, we'll throw out another debate. Cheetos, if you want to be a sponsor of the show, mailroom at gpstheguide.com. We would love to sponsor all your flavors. This one's free. The next one will cost you.
I mean, y'all just came out with a movie. You need some sponsorship. Let's go.
just in case you're
Send it
listening.
out.
I got asked this question by our friend of the show, Amanda Mundy. Is
All right.
peanut butter sweet or savory? I'll let you guys answer.
define savory.
What else do you consider? Yeah. What else do you consider
I
savory?
think savory would be
Like salty or
not salty. Non-dessert taste, non-dessert flavor, not sweet. So like if you watch Gordon Ramsay show, savory would be steak or potatoes or vegetables, anything that's not a dessert sweet flavor. I think that's how Amanda was posing the question. So is peanut butter sweet or savory?
I don't think it's necessarily savory. I don't know what category it falls in, but for me, it's not sweet.
Not sweet?
yeah. I agree. That's exactly
I think it's
where
a
I'm
very-
at.
I think
but
it's a
don't-
very
I don't
fine
know
line.
I don't know what the category that it's in. I don't think a peanut butter is
I think I go more
don't.
savory than sweet.
Yeah, I would lean savory, but I wouldn't. It's not savory. Definitely not sweet.
Gotcha. Yep.
See, I went sweet. I went sweet with it. When the group we were in, when she first asked this question, she was outnumbered, like 5-1, something like that. Every person I've asked since then, and it's been several, they all say savory. They're like, "Oh, it's not sweet at all, savory."
So the group you asked in, everybody said it was sweet.
Everybody but Amanda. Amanda said it was savory, and I was like, "You're out of your mind. It's sweet." And I guess peanut butter and jelly to me is kind of sweet. And-
Wouldn't the jelly be the sweet part?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Jelly
a
is
combo.
sweet.
Yeah, but still, like I still register in my brain
Peanut butter.
butter as sweet.
Have you asked Dawn that
I
question?
don't know if I've asked Dawn.
She likes peanut butter pie and that
We
kind
can
of like
we can call her,
like frozen peanut butter pie or whatever kind of thing.
but I
So-
relate peanut butter to desserts, candy, like
Tips you'll answer.
all this candy, and like I don't know. To me, peanut butter is sweet. Now, she said, "Well, if you just get a spoonful of peanut butter out of the jar,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was
like, that's
thinking.
not
Yeah.
sweet."
That's
That's
what
like,
I was thinking.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's how I'm gauging it.
and there is like a peanut butter sauce that goes on food and stuff like that. Like I get it, but to me, it's still just. I said sweet, and I have been vastly outnumbered since.
It's okay to be wrong. Okay.
I didn't say I was wrong. I said I was outnumbered.
Just hang out with those people you were in the beginning. and you'll be fine.
Everybody else said I was wrong.
Good shot.
Did that go in?
Good shot.
Ryan shot his paper towel across the room. That's at least 10 feet.
Nice.
I saw it hit the wall, but then I lost it
It's
with
a
your
backboard.
elbow.
It was
So
Perfect.
It went in.
It was perfect.
What do you think? Is peanut butter savory or sweet? We're going to put that on Instagram poll. Can you do that? Is that something you can do?
You can
We'll
do
figure it
that.
out.
All right.
You can do that.
I threw that out there as a promise, and then I was like, uh-oh. I need to make sure that's possible. I'm pretty sure
We will
I've heard
attempt very,
Simple.
very
Try.
strongly at doing
You
it.
can do multiple choice questions. You can do a 50-50 poll. Or you can do
that. Yeah, we're going to put a poll
comments,
We
questions.
would like to introduce our newest Instagram person.
Hey, I will take it
up with it.
over.
out there. Oh, don't say
Instagram guy.
that. I will give it to you if you offer that.
We got
But,
to cut these episodes, cut some clips out, post them on Instagram.
There we go. Our new social media director, Mr. Ty Dean.
All of a sudden, you only see like his
Congratulations.
dogs on there. And
Just turns into mine.
is it a podcast or is this about dogs? Which one is it?
It's a fashion show. They're posting
While they're
I
talking
Heart
about
Savannah.
James tonight, here's
Yeah.
what my dogs are doing.
Yeah. Speaking of tongues, look at this one.
This I Heart Savannah shirt. Where did that come from? But all right, peanut butter, sweet or savory, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I just relate it to sweet stuff, so that's where I went with it.
Savannah's mom would be a good person to ask. She will eat peanut butter for like every meal of the day. She loves peanut butter.
I'll take peanut butter if I have oatmeal. Not every time. I don't eat oatmeal much, but the little packets, that you just microwave. You take a spoonful of peanut butter and throw in that bad boy and mix it in. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Apples and cinnamon oatmeal. Throw that in there. It's like a candy bar.
Never been a fan of any kind of oatmeal.
I like. I didn't like oatmeal, but cream of wheat. I'll do cream of wheat. It's almost like
It is almost,
but
the
it's
same.
not.
I will do cream of wheat too.
Cream of
Yeah,
wheat
actually.
is not as sweet unless you add sugar and
You gotta
stuff.
add
We got
sugar.
we would get the maple syrup cream of wheat.
So speaking of peanut butter, have y'all ever tried peanut butter that's like a different than a peanut? Like I'm trying to think,
Almond butter.
or like almond butter, or just any
Terrible.
other.
Hated it.
I always thought I would try to make cashew.
I don't think I've had it. Anything.
I love cashews, and I was always curious what if it would taste good as a butter.
As a butter. It's like, well, you know how they're making like every nut milk? Like, what if they just started making every nut peanut butter?
Start it up.
Pistachio butter. I mean, I'm just saying.
I like pistachios, but I don't know if I would like pistachio butter.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Kroger or Walmart, one of those, but you could go and they'd almost be like a candy dispensers of all the different nuts, and you can go and make your own butter with it. Might have to try that.
So we have a new social media director, and Ryan has a new business venture. So be on the lookout for
Yeah.
It's a lot
the
happening.
GPS
Just,
the God
just
umbrella of companies.
Barely getting started here, and look at all the stuff we're uncovering.
Yeah, and we got to get into the
Instagram
Book of James
polls.
here in a second. And
GPS
it's a-
guys just the
Oh, we're
parent-
supposed
it's the
to be
parent
doing a book of
company.
James? Okay.
But before we get into that, let's see if Miss Dawn Gotra will answer the phone. When's the last time she was on the podcast? It's been a long time.
Mom jokes. What?
No, we had Christmas since then.
She doesn't like
Christmas
the podcast.
was-
She doesn't like being on.
She likes the podcast, but
I don't. It's probably my fault not inviting her.
yeah.
Okay, but she would come. Like she's not like
I think
Yeah, I
so.
guess
I think she
she's
would.
not like Christy, who she's like.
Oh, no. You got a way better chance. You got a 75% chance that she'll come on before Christmas.
She would kick Ryan out. He had to take the kids. But
Yeah,
That is truth.
Your call has been forwarded to an
Man.
automatic voice message.
No chance.
nothing
You think
like
she'll-
getting stood up.
You think she'll call back, Ryan, or does she know what's up?
I mean, I would think that she'd be like, well, they're on the podcast. Why are they calling me?
We'll find out. We're-
that's what I thought when I got a call. I was like, "Why is Daniel calling me?" And then I was like, "What?" Oh, I saw what time it was, and I was like, "I wonder if he got some sort of."
Yes.
I was like, and
The
I
answer
always
is
watch
yes.
/ listen to episodes where it's call and nobody answers. I was like, I can't be that guy.
We appreciate your contribution, Tom, as always. As
And then I
always.
was blindsided.
I just text her.
That you are.
You were blindsided by me, and that's why he's in studio today to defend himself more. But we appreciate you had great insight being blindsided, put
I
on
had-
the spot
I had,
in the moment.
I had some clarity like 5 minutes later, and I was like, I couldn't call back. I don't want to come back.
You should have, man.
No, it's all good. No, I mean, it's not like what I think I said was wrong. It was just like, I had another like point or something like
yes.
that.
Oh, man, it's like that's the George Costanza. You think about it after you leave. That was the comeback. We're coming back to the book of James. We started last week. We went through the first 2 chapters. Today we're going to go through the rest of the book, which is chapters 3, 4, and 5. Maybe you read ahead this week, and we hope so, and that you get something out of this, whether you did or not. So this, man, I was convicted a little bit in this chapters 3 through 5.
A little.
The entire book is
It is a good book, but it's
definitely convicting.
You want to hear
It
a
is
funny
deep.
James story? I know we're trying to get into it, but in 2nd grade, you know, you have to take AR tests. Every book has AR points, and you have to take tests on the book you read to.
Do they still do that now? Like, does Eli? Is Eli old
I
enough
think
to
so.
do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he does. He doesn't like to read as much as me and my siblings did. So, but yeah, they still do it. So I found out in 2nd grade that the books of the Bible are on the AR system.
No.
And and so I was like, well, that's awesome. So I was like going to go out and get, I was like, what book could I read? And I was like, I want to find a short one. And I looked at James. I was like, oh, it's 3 pages. And so I went and I took, the AR test was five questions. I got a 2 out of 5.
Nice.
I don't think I remembered anything. I think
He
it was
failed, James.
I completely guessed. I was in 2nd grade. Like, no way I knew what this was saying. Like, I was just reading it to read it. Like, but my
that's
teacher was
awesome.
like, I had read like Harry Potter, so I'd had all the points already. So she
Yeah.
was like, I mean, go for it. But she asked me, she's like, are you sure you want, like, do you, like, it's going to hurt your score? Like, you're, she didn't, I was like,
Bring it
oh,
down
yeah,
the-
it's fine. It's fine.
bringing down the
At a
batting
40.
average.
I didn't take Harry Potter tests until I was a senior because I knew they were going to give me a lot of points to go on this big trip.
There you go.
Fano and I did not have those options when
Did
we
not
were in
have those
school.
options.
AR
I don't think-
reading was
They just
not
had
a-
stone and chisels, right? That you had to read.
Didn't, man. No, just had the book and
I mean, we
pencil
had
and a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly.
that's all. You just wrote it all out, I guess.
You got to read the Scarlet Letter this week, and then
We
we'll
had
be
to read the
taking a
Scarlet
choice.
Letter. We had to read the Scarlet Letter. That was
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah,
I read that.
That's
one,
my
yeah.
favorite book of all
much
time.
better than the Scarlet Letter. I mean, if we're being honest here,
For sure.
go with To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a great book.
Yes.
Got to see that on a school field trip. We read the book, and then like later in the year,
Nice.
we went to watch it, like
Nice.
watch a play of
that's cool.
To Kill a
yeah.
Mockingbird. Not a Scarlet Letter. To Kill a
That
Mockingbird.
would be
That would be a little. That would be a little heavy.
Bunch of elementary kids. out
heavy.
there.
That would be a little heavy.
All right, so the book of James, it might help you deal with some of that, maybe not, but
Taming the tongue.
let's get into chapter 3. And chapter 3 starts off talking about not many of you should become teachers. Speaking of teachers of the word, teachers of the faith, and that's pretty direct to the point and against what many of us feel like our abilities could be in general life. We all want to be the one who's teaching, the one giving advice. We want to be the one in charge. We want to be the expert. And James comes out and says, most of y'all should not be doing that.
Greater responsibility.
Greater responsibility. And it says you're going to be judged more strict than non-teachers. This kind of was, to me, a confliction point a little bit. So I'm just going to ask you guys the question that popped in my head. Who are teachers? Who are supposed to be teachers? That was when I first
Who-
read that, just like
people-wise.
people-wise.
Like, okay.
Yeah, like
Oh, see, I went straight the Bible answer. I'm thinking the saints of our church, like the people that have had the experience. They kind of had that. They know the rights and wrongs that we maybe haven't seen yet.
Well, I'll tell you where I had that question, and then what popped in my head was, go and make disciples. We have the Great Commission to go and make disciples. How am I going to go make disciples if I'm not being a teacher for those people? So I went back. I did a little flip through back to the book of Matthew.
Cross-reference.
Little cross-reference action. Matthew 28:19. And this is the Great Commission. Jesus is talking, and he says, go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. But so I realized, like, there it is. He says, go teach them. But who was he talking to? Anybody know?
Everyone.
In that conversation, he was talking to the disciples. Right. So I started in verse 19. If you back up to Matthew 28, verse 16, he's talking to the 11 disciples. It's a select group. He was not preaching that in. Now we're being very topical with this study, so we're speaking in generalities here. But he was not preaching, like the Sermon on the Mount to 5,000 people, all this stuff. He was talking just to his disciples in this Great Commission. So it was, yes, go and teach people, but it was a select number of people that were going to be those teachers.
But I think now it includes everyone.
Yes, I believe. I think sharing your faith includes everyone. We all need to share our faith, but we don't all need to be teachers.
I think this
it's one of those tricky points of the Bible, right? That it's like it's not contradictory, but it's there's levels that you go. So everyone should share their faith, but teaching. I guess it's like that's why I kept coming back to the question. Well, who are teachers? What are that kind of thing?
I would say discipleship and leadership teaching somewhat go hand in hand, but they're also separate. And so I would think this is referring here to like an official teaching capacity, whether that be a pastor, an elder, or a Sunday school leader, or whoever you are. And then I would look to 1 and 2 Timothy and Titus, where it describes pastors, elders, and teachers in the church of who should become a teacher. That's where I would go.
Yeah.
And that's just the first verse there in James. And I mean, James chapter 3, rather. But this was, I was in it from the start, fellas.
Jumped right in.
And then we get into some talk, like we teased earlier, your tongue, and it can get you into trouble. And gives descriptions about a bridle for a horse controls the entire, or a bit controls the entire horse's body. A small ship's rudder can take a ship through stormy seas, through a big giant boat, all this kind of stuff. But our tongue is a small member. Verse number 5, the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. Another example, it gave a small spark, small flame can set a forest on fire. And then verse number 6, the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue set among our members, staining the whole body, setting it on fire, the entire course of life, and it is set on fire by hell. That stood out to me pretty like your tongue set on fire from hell itself. So you are spewing falsehoods against God. You're speaking for Satan, not speaking for God.
This is a quick side note. Back to verse 5. Does y'all's Bible have the word see is the S in bold? Like it says, see how great a forest is set aflame by such a small fire or spark.
Mine just says how great a forest.
So it doesn't say see.
No.
Nope.
I'm reading two different versions here. I think this is NASB and this is Amplified maybe. And they both have C and the S is bold. C is not bold, but the S is bold.
Yeah. This might be a misprint. This Bible might be worth money here, Ty.
No, I mean, but it's in other ones too.
I don't know. Yeah, mine just says how great. It doesn't have C.
What's another version we can check out?
See with King James. Go with the traditional.
Behold.
That's a good word that I don't use.
King James.
No, behold.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
King James.
He doesn't say the word King James very often.
It's got a lot of King James have a lot of words that we don't.
I guess it's just these two.
Use naturally, I guess.
But going back to the tongue, it talks about every kind of beast and reptiles, sea creatures, we have tamed all of those, but we have not yet been able to tame our own tongue. Verse number 8, it is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. Your tongue is a restless evil. It never stops. It is always being in motion, full of deadly poison. We bless our Father and our Lord with it, and then we curse people. This was another biggie. We curse people who are made in the likeness of God. So, I mean, that's kind of talking about enemy. You know, I think that's not about friends, but it could be. But still, you're going to bless God with it and then turn right around and, you know, curse someone else, talk bad about someone, and that person is made in the image of God the same as you are.
This might be the complete wrong thing, but the first thing that popped in my head was bullying. Just thinking of, you could be the smallest person or the biggest person, but that as long as you have a tongue and you can speak, you can go and, I mean, I'm just thinking about in schools these days and people getting behind computers or whatever and just being bullies.
Yeah.
But,
you know, it goes back to the be slow to speak, slow to anger kind of
Absolutely.
stuff. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we all know these phrases, these verses, these right things to do, but we still can't tame our own tongue. And one of the things I was reading is that, you know, your true nature is going to come out in the things you say. You can pretend with your actions a little bit, but fig trees don't produce olives. And the nature of something is going to reveal itself if you give it enough time to act naturally. And negativity, hate, you know, they continue to come from our mouths, even though we might pretend or put on a face, put on a show of being a good person, doing something good, and then we turn around and we've just been pretending. We turn around and curse somebody, talk bad about somebody, even maybe about God, you know, talking bad about God.
I think at verse 7, when it's talking about, you know, for every species of beasts and birds, of reptiles, creatures of the sea is tamed and has been tamed by the human race, but no one can tame the tongue. Like, you think, like, well, when I was training my dog, like, it was pretty easy to train the dog. You know, like, he took him a couple weeks, but he got to go out to the bathroom and where to go, when he's going to eat, you know, sit, stay, commands and all that stuff. But then you go to think about, well, what about those like reptile trainers? Like, it's hard to train. I would imagine it's hard to train and tame reptiles. Or then it goes to sea creatures. Like, I couldn't imagine being at SeaWorld and trying to tame like killer whales, you know? So like, imagine how hard it is to tame those animals. And it's like, we've done it, but you can't tame the tongue. And it's like, it's tiny and it's like a part of you. Like, it's one thing that you would think like, oh, that's easy. But it's saying like, no, we've tamed all these other things that are extremely difficult to tame, except the tongue.
And it's something everyone has. You know, it's not everyone's familiar with it. Everyone uses it in the same way.
Yep.
And none of us are able to tame it.
Everyone has been guilty of blessings coming out, but then again, a harsh word. The Bible in the commentary talks about gossiping, criticizing, things I've definitely been guilty of.
Skip on down to verse number 13. This goes back to kind of the beginning of the chapter a little bit, but we're talking about wisdom, who is wise and understanding among you. It's kind of going back. This part, verse 13 through 18, is kind of talking about who should be teachers. These are the people who should be teachers. Kind of echoes back to that a little bit. The people who are wise, the people who are seeking God's wisdom, and who are being meek in the world, which is a hard thing to do. That's not a word many of us use often either, but I mean, when you hear the word meek or meekness, pretty small. The visual I kind of get in my head is, you know, someone who's small, going to let anybody else lord over them, command over them, have their way, whatever. But those who are wise, Solomon asked for wisdom. He could have had anything else. I mean, he had to have some kind of wisdom to even ask that, but Solomon asked for wisdom, but, you know, I think wisdom is more than just education. It's more than book knowledge. It's your actions. What are you doing? How are you living? You actions, speech, meekness, humbleness, that kind of thing.
Verse 14 talks about just things of this world, like envy, bitter envy, selfish ambition, where that comes from. Just reading through that, I mean, those types of things are glorified as far as earthly, from an earthly perspective.
Yeah, I think there's earthly wisdom and heavenly wisdom for sure. There's two kinds of wisdom, and where is your focus? What are you?
Yeah.
Which one are you seeking? Are you seeking earthly wisdom or heavenly wisdom? And that earthly side is jealousy and selfless ambition, and all the self-seeking, self-serving things that we do.
That is promoted in society.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all,
absolutely.
I mean, it's.
Uh-oh. Dawn,
Hello.
thank you so much for calling back.
18 minutes later.
Hey, that is fine. That
was the longest 18
We're
minutes
still
ever.
going.
That is 18 minutes
We didn't
faster
start.
than
We
many
waited
people.
until you called back.
Yeah.
We've been on pause for
Go
the
hit
last
go hit
18
record now.
Baby, if someone would have told me that, then I would have called back way sooner.
Oh, I see where we fall in your priorities. We were just talking about selfless ambition, and we were teasing. So we have a poll question, and we wanted to get you involved. See what you think. Peanut butter. Are you a fan of peanut butter?
I do like peanut butter, yes.
Okay. Is peanut butter sweet or savory?
It depends on what it's with.
No, we just need an answer. One or the other.
Peanut butter by itself. If you just took what the question is, peanut butter.
Don't think about things you put with it.
A scoop
It
of
itself.
peanut butter on a spoon.
I think this poll might be being tainted in some way, but anyway, feel free to give an answer.
If I'm going to eat peanut butter, I don't know. I'd probably say it's a sweet. I don't know. That's a hard one.
Why? Why do you think it's sweet?
You and I can hang out anytime, Dawn, because me and you are the only ones that think it's sweet.
Stop hurting my child in the background.
I don't. Well, she loves the car seat. When I eat peanut butter, it's just sweet. It's not. Think of like people would think like meat and stuff is savory. I don't think of a peanut butter being savory like that.
I'll talk to you when you get
don't
home. This is
Whatever.
definitely not the correct answer.
Yes.
Dawn, you are so right that it's hurting Ryan right now. He is being selfish, and
He's being salty is what it sounds like.
salty. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not being sweet or savory.
He's not.
Not being sweet or
It's got
savory.
another
Just going
category
straight
for him.
salty.
Well, thanks for calling in.
No problem.
Dawn, have a great night, and thank you in all sweetness and honesty. Thank you for calling back and taking part in the. You're the deciding vote. We're going to go with you.
3-2.
3-2. What kind of math are you working out over there?
Well, she's got two kids in the back seat that are going to vote with her. So make that 4-3.
Good grief. All right.
Thanks, Dawn.
No problem. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
We needed a break after talking bad about ourselves and
Oh,
tongue and our earthly ambition. So, whew.
don't think you
You going to leave that right in the middle like
Oh,
that?
yeah, of
that's
course.
awesome.
Why not?
I think getting back to it, just jump right back in. I think this is a good. James obviously the way he wrote it on purpose. But saying don't become teachers. One because you're going to be judged to a different standard, but two because the tongue is so hard to tame. And how do you teach with the tongue? And if anything that isn't from God comes out of your mouth, then that is going to be judged much more harshly than someone that is not a teacher. And so it's a good just kind of good segue.
Yeah, it all rolls together.
Yeah. Because sometimes we can get so focused on, well, this chapter's here and this chapter is here, but these chapters and verses weren't in the original print. So if you're just reading this as like a letter,
right.
I mean, you're going to see like, oh yeah, that connects here. That connects back to what you're saying here. Yeah. And it's just a very good, it provides a good illustration of hey, this is why. I'm not just telling you don't become a teacher because I don't want you to. It's no, one, you're judged to a higher standard, and two, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the wisdom from heaven, you have the earthly wisdom, and you start if that starts kind of coming into your speech, then that's a big problem.
Great way to summarize all that. Put it together in a nice, neat package.
Unspiritual, demonic is what my verse 15. Such wisdom does not come down from above, but it's earthly, unspiritual, demonic.
It says earthly, natural, and demonic.
We want to use that in terms of like food or something like that. Oh, this is all natural and it's good for you, but all natural can be very bad for you as well.
I think of like
spiritually.
Well, yeah, obviously natural is like coming from the earth, so it's earthly. But like, I think of like an athlete. You look at him and he's like, oh, he's a natural. Like it comes easy to him. And so what is natural in this is the wisdom that is from earth. It comes easy.
That's
like
right.
the the heavenly wisdom, the wisdom that Solomon had to ask for.
Yeah.
That's a little bit harder to gain.
Yeah.
And that earthly wisdom that comes easy puffs us up, makes us conceited.
Right.
We get worldly praise. Oh, I'm doing the right thing then because everybody's loving what I'm doing.
Right.
And that's taking you further away from God, potentially.
Which is a big thing that leads us into pride.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a lot of James is focused on too.
And that rolls straight into chapter 4. What causes evil? What causes you to fight? The quarrels and stuff that you have among yourselves. What causes that? What causes the evil and the crime in the world, or the evil and the crime within us? We have a war in our own body, mind, spirit, passions. We have passions waging war against us. And it says that also in the verse 1 there of chapter 4. Is it not that what causes the quarrels? Is it not this, that your own passions are at war within you? That we have, our own body, our own mind, our own spirit is fighting against themselves. We want the things of God, but our body betrays us and is chasing the things of the world, or our mind, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Listening to the Francis Chan that you mentioned earlier, like what he talks about here is like not only is it talking about like actual like fighting and quarrels here, but like when it comes to prayer, this is a good passage on how to pray, because like you do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask with the wrong motives. And you take that and think, oh well, what does my prayer life look like? Is it me? Like it might be what I'm saying might sound good and might be good. It might be like, God, give me this, or help me be strong here, or let me do what, because it's all me. Give me, help me. Like, but he said, hey, our prayers need to be, God, let me see you. Let me see your glory, your beauty, your passion. Give me your desires, not the desires of my heart, but the desires of you. And then, constantly looking to see the beauty of Jesus and the beauty of our God will then flow out into that heavenly wisdom that he talks about before. So I know it doesn't really say prayer there, but it's just.
But yeah, I mean, I do think that's what it. You do not have because you do not ask. That's talking about your prayer life.
For sure.
It doesn't say the word prayer,
right? But you ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions.
A lot of times too, this convicted me. What this verse says, and and just kind of what Francis Chan was saying is like. A lot of times my prayer, and I'm not trying to say I'm good at praying. No, like a lot of times my prayer is in the right place, but it's misguided. Like sometimes I'm saying, I'm struggling with this sin. God, give me the strength to overcome it. Right? Let me overcome this. Give me the strength to overcome. Like I can't do it alone. I need you. Help me overcome it. And it's not what God wants. Like we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to overcome the sin. Right? That's why Jesus had to come and die on the cross. So, well, what should I be praying? God, let me see your beauty. Like, show me, how to love you more. And then through that, then you'll start to overcome that sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's going to be temptations, as we saw earlier in James. Yeah. But, God, if I'm focused on you and your glory, then it's going to be a lot easier to overcome.
Yeah.
We're never tempted beyond what we can bear, but our focus a lot of times is in the wrong place.
Yeah. And I think that's easy to do whenever you do pray, is that unfortunately, it's easy for you to kind of twist that prayer into something that benefiting you, but not necessarily in line with what God may want. And my commentary says it. It says a helpful question to pose when you pray about something for ourselves is this: how will God's program be advanced through the granting of my request? And that's I mean, shouldn't be difficult to do, but it is definitely difficult to do for you to step back and say, whatever I'm praying for, how does that advance God's kingdom? Mm-hmm. Is that something that's just going to advance me?
Yeah.
And that's what I automatically think will advance God's kingdom, or is it should be the other way around? What advances God's kingdom, and then me fall in line to whatever that plan is. And it's
almost like if I were to have or anybody were to have a conversation with God and be like, he's like, you're not doing it right. You're like, what do you mean I'm not doing it right? Like, I'm doing what, like, I want what you want from me, right? Like, you want me to overcome, like, this is what is in the, he's like, yeah, but you're looking at it wrong.
Right.
Like, he's just saying, hey, focus on me.
Right.
Like, turn your eyes away from what the sin that you're trying to defeat and focus on me.
Right.
And by doing so, you will defeat that sin.
Yeah.
And it's just so, like, we get so caught up, like you were saying, in how do we do this? How do I do this? And God's like, you're missing the point. Like, look to me. Like, I mean, look at what I've created. Look, I mean, I created you. Every breath you take, I hold my hand. So just focus on me.
Right.
And we forget that a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's that, verse 4, it rolls into you adulterous people with an exclamation point. I mean, it's not just a Passover statement, but we're seeking things outside of our relationship with God.
Right.
We're seeking things that for our own passions, and we sell ourselves on, well, this is God's plan. I'm seeking his plan, but we're seeking those things in our passions.
Right.
It says you adulterous people. It's like we're seeking outside of God. It's like he's not fulfilling us, or he's not able to give us everything we need. So we're kind of seeking outside of him to satisfy something within ourselves. And verse 4 continues that do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. And on that one, we are not calling God an enemy. God is calling us an enemy.
Yeah.
Right.
In that, when we seek that other stuff, when we seek the things of the world,
Right. Or have more of a fear of the world than we have a fear of God.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that affects us all, that we're fearful of what people might think or what people might say or whatever. But, and I'm definitely guilty of this, having more of a fear of God than I should of mankind or anything of this earth.
I don't think we think about fear of God. Like, what does that mean? I don't know that we put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah.
I'm speaking in general terms, not to any one person, but like if we really thought about that, I think we would have fear. I don't know that we can even fully understand it, but to have God angry at us or to be separated from God for eternity, like that should scare every part of our soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, when you're a kid and they try to teach you the fear of the Lord, and you're like, what does that mean? I'm not supposed to be afraid of God. And it's like, because, and it's right. You're not supposed to be afraid of God. We're supposed to come to him daily and shouldn't be afraid of that. But like, at the same time, you got to realize his power and glory and holiness, and every example you see of when God is shown in the Bible to human, they're terrified.
Yes.
And half the time, it's not even God himself; it's angels or Jesus. And so like we should be afraid. Like, we don't know how afraid we should be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And even though we make God an enemy at times when we're seeking ourselves or seeking things of the world. Verse number 6, it says, but he gives more grace. But God gives even more grace when we are out here being stupid, when we're humble. Verse number 6, therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So when we truly humble ourselves back before him, he continues to give grace, even though we have made him an enemy at times. And thank you, God, for that grace.
Absolutely.
I like verse 7 too, because it kind of goes along the lines of what I was saying earlier. Submit therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee for you. So my prayers are always, God, help me to resist the devil. And he's like, well, you missed the first part of that verse. Like, submit to me. And when you submit to me, that is how you will resist the devil, and that's when he flees from you.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of times we want to boss God around, like we want to boss him around, or we want him on demand
Right.
to fit what we want,
Yeah.
when we want it, how we want it.
Then it goes right back to the verse before it, talking about God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble.
Yeah.
It's almost like we do this all the time. We take verses out of context, but we look at, and even if we're not trying to, it's like we go and like, okay, well, I've done 7. Okay, well, what about 6 before that? You completely missed that part. You know, it's just like
On demand God. We want him
Yeah.
how we want him.
Yeah.
I don't that part doesn't really pertain to me. That's for somebody else. But, let's guard your toes in this episode. Guard your toes.
cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. It's pretty.
The double-minded is a little hits a little close to home a lot of time. Like,
Well, isn't it going back to what he was saying about the tongue too? Like,
Yep.
with the same tongue you praise and curse at
Yep.
the same time. Like,
Yeah.
how can you do 2 things at once? You idiots.
double-minded is something we don't want to think about a lot. We kind of deceive ourselves, lie to ourselves. But going right after that, be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. I mean, that seems kind of backwards thinking of what we would normally say, like, God is going to pick us up when we're going through bad times. He's going to carry us. He's going to lift
Right.
us up. And James is kind of saying the opposite here a little bit.
It's going back to the Job study.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Yes.
like Job didn't get exalted right away.
Right.
Right.
Everything he wanted and asked for is
Yeah.
I think what James is saying here, one of the points he's kind of bringing across is turn your laughter into mourning. It's kind of saying don't seek joy in the wrong things. If you're happy and you're laughing in it, well, why is that? Is it God? Are you praising him in good times and bad times? Or do you have this happiness and joyfulness because you got some money that you weren't expecting, or something else happened, worldly, a good, positive, worldly thing happened. Well, now we're seeking joy outside of God.
Right.
So I think that's what he's saying. Be careful what you are getting your fulfillment from. God is the one who can fulfill and who should fulfill. If you're getting that from outside, you need to reevaluate what is making you happy. Going on here, still in chapter 4, verse 13. Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go into such and such, spend a year, make trade, make a profit. But we do not know what tomorrow will bring. Eye-catching a little bit, ear-catching. How do we make plans when we don't even know if we're going to be around tomorrow or not?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Guilty.
But I think, it's talking about this passage, talking about boasting and being arrogant later down in the end of chapter 4. And an example I heard was, you all tell me, does this seem arrogant? If we were just having this conversation and I said this, does this seem arrogant? Hey guys, I got a new internship and in Chicago, so I'm going to be moving to Chicago, and I'll be there for the next year.
nope. Sounds like a normal conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, but to God, that can be boasting because if we're
You're
making those,
already thinking you're going to be there for the whole year.
I'm making I could be making those plans outside of him, outside of his will,
Yeah.
and that's boasting, or that's being arrogant. I'm in control of my life. I don't need God to make these plans for me. I'll live for God when I go there, but I'm still going. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I don't think James is saying like the only that would be a sin necessarily, but it's like he's saying, hey, check your heart too.
Yeah.
Like what you should be thinking is, hey, if the Lord wills it, this is what, you know. And
Right.
it's not, don't exalt yourself over it. You know, like, I don't think it's necessarily a sin to plan out, you know, to have a plan for what's going to happen in the future, but also don't get arrogant about it. You know, like remember that God holds your life. There's nothing you can do apart from Him, so don't forget that.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's exactly what it says. A few verses down, you know, your life is just a mist. It's going to go by fast, but you ought to say, if the Lord wills, then we will do this or then we will do that.
Right.
So we're not boasting in our own abilities or plans or anything like that.
And that's something that we do all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we just got out of church meeting about missions and everything, and I'm first to say, oh, didn't do it next year, I'll do it next year. I didn't do it this year, I'll do it next year. Just, I mean, we equate just kind of just time as if it's just automatically promised and given to us. And
There's
I mean, we
another
do that-
opportunity rolling around.
We do that daily. I mean,
Yeah.
we just say that daily. Oh, I'll do that next year. Just that we're like promised or guaranteed time here.
Yeah, it's like outside, Zach asked me, like, hey, I'm taking the CPA exam. And so he asked, hey, when's your next two tests? And I was like, well, I'm thinking about taking one in August and then the next one in October. And that gives me some time if I don't, you know. And I was like going through the plan of my test, and I was thinking back to this, and I was like, well, I hope my heart isn't being arrogant when I'm saying this. Like, I think it's okay that I have a plan.
Of course.
And it's okay that our church has planned missions for the
Yes.
future.
Right.
But it's like you were saying, don't get, well, there's always an opportunity. Because
Right.
no, there's not always an opportunity.
It's not guaranteed.
Well, yeah, it comes back to being submissive to God,
Yeah.
seeking His plan. Like, our plans are His plan, and I'm not making my own plans outside of that, or being arrogant and you know, that war that's going on inside of me. Whose passion am I giving? Am I giving into my own passions and my own desires, or am I humbling myself, being meek, and laying down the things I want to do what God is commanding us to do? And if we're not, then we're not recognizing His sovereignty, you know, and His being the boss over the world, over the universe, over every single detail that we don't even think about or couldn't even know about. You know, if we are outside, if the Lord wills this, then I'll do this. Anything beyond that is just us being arrogant in our own abilities and skills. Sometimes I think, too, we consider things that other people do to be more arrogant than what we do. And it's like, well, look how bad that guy is, or that person. Like, look at their attitude. I'm not anywhere close to that bad. I'm all right.
Yeah.
But we're still, you know,
That's the
being
earthly
sinful.
wisdom.
Yeah, that's the earthly wisdom. We're still being sinful, or still being not having our will aligned with God's will. But we're comparing ourselves and judging ourselves against other people, not against God.
I think we talked about that last week with the plank.
Mm-hmm.
Plank in the eye, kind of.
Yeah. Got a piece of sawdust in your eye over there, Ryan. Got a 2x4 over here sticking
How'd
out.
you see that? How'd you see that sawdust when you were over there holding that thing in your eye?
And it's kind of, you know, verse 17 wraps it up in chapter 4. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. I say this verse a lot in my head. And most of the time it's over something trivial, like, because I kind of tie it into treat others the way you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. So here's one real life example that's super trivial. The toilet paper roll runs out. Do I just leave it, the empty cardboard tube on there, or do I take that off, throw it away, and put a fresh roll of toilet paper out?
Fano, I think you need to answer this one.
Laura's been great.
No.
She's been great. She's been great.
But to
Thanks
me,
for bringing that up.
yeah.
You're welcome.
Callback from early GPS to God right there.
Oh, goodness.
That was not a shot at Fano. That is a conversation I
2020.
have in my own head.
2022 stuff right there.
Or you know, I have a paper towel, a piece of paper, something like this. I throw it in the trash can and I miss, and it goes behind the trash can. I can just leave that. No one's even going to see it till they take the trash out, and they don't know who did it. I don't have to pick that up.
Yeah.
Like I have, those are
But
trivial
you
things.
do.
I go pick it up because I hear these verses in my head. Like, whoever knows what to do and you don't do it, that's a sin.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, that's something that's
I don't think it
trivial.
necessarily is trivial.
But
No.
I'm talking those acts.
Oh,
Those
yeah,
seem
yeah,
those,
yeah.
those
Yeah,
actions
seems,
They seem
seem trivial. Like,
Right.
small.
dude, it's
Yeah.
just it's one little piece of paper
Right.
behind the trash can or
Right.
whatever it is.
Right.
But you know, the I think the sin of neglect is kind of rebelling against God's will.
Right.
Like when we neglect to do the right thing, even in small things, we're rebelling against God.
All right.
Yeah, it goes back to what is coming from your heart. Like, it's people aren't going to see necessarily that sin. But it's like, where's your heart at? Is your heart at, well, I mean, I could go get, I just don't feel like. Well, then that's laziness, and it's check your heart. That's
Right.
basically what James is saying throughout the whole book. It's like, look, you guys don't realize how bad you're being.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And chapter 5 gets into some of that same viewpoint, but I want to wrap up. So when I joined the Army has standards and they have core values, Army values. And one of the things is like, do the right thing, even when no one else is watching. Which is they're coming at it from an earthly viewpoint, but it kind of ties into the same thing of do the right thing. The right thing is always the right thing.
Yeah.
And there is no compromise on that. God's will is always God's will. There is no compromise.
Yeah.
So nobody knows I missed that trash can but me and God. God still knows. He's still watching over us
For sure.
when we're doing something wrong, even if no one else knows it or we think no one else knows it.
Yeah. Sins of commission, the ones we all think of, and then sins of omission, where we don't do something that we should do.
Yeah.
Whether that be as simple as throwing a trash behind a trash can or not speaking to someone in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That.
Yep.
Whew. Man, I told this one was heavy. This one was.
This whole, like we said earlier, this whole book, man.
Yeah.
Imagine
it's just-
being in
it's-
second grade and trying to take a test over it.
2 out of 5 is looking pretty good right now.
I wish I knew the questions just so I could
Man, that's so good.
That would be good to get our hands on that test.
It would be.
Yeah. Chapter 5, last one of the book of James, starts out with, come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. That was who is the rich? Another question I had, who's it talking to? Who's it talking about? Because I think many of us, I would venture most of us, especially in America, and we know this podcast goes well beyond America, but most civilized, what we call civilized nations, most people in those nations are rich by world standards. So I think we have to be careful that we can't assume that this verse or this book or really the whole Bible, but we can't assume it's not talking about me. I mean, I'm not rich. I know people that have way more money than I have, and I see these celebrities and these billionaires and all that. Like, I'm not rich. They're rich, but it's still talking about us.
Yeah, I think the statistic is like top 10% in the world is like 30,000 in the world. And it's like, well, that's below the poverty line in America.
Yeah.
So it's like what our poverty is top 10% rich in the world. So it's a whole perspective that we don't even look at. Like, I mean, it's like going back to the video in church tonight. We had a missions meeting and they showed a video of these wells that we've paid for to build in Africa, and a city that is about to get one, or not a city, I guess it's a tribe, it's
village,
yeah, is about to get one, and the water that they had had to be they had to scoop it out of a huge mud pit basically with this huge bowl, and then take that bowl, let the dirt and mud settle, and then scoop from the top, and then they showed us that bowl and it was still dirty, and it's like that is something that we can't even
And I'm going to turn around and not drink all this and throw the rest of it away in the trash can. You know?
Yeah.
And then that goes back to the verse before it.
Yep.
It's almost like this book connects, and
Yeah, it is.
Like there's a little bit of truth in here or
yeah,
something.
gosh.
Common theme throughout.
Verse number 3, your gold and silver have corroded. Their corrosion will be evidence against you and will eat your flesh like fire. All of our stuff is going to be evidence against, like the stuff we own, the stuff we hoard, the stuff we collect. Is going to be evidence against us. And absolutely goes back to verse 17, chapter 4, verse 17. We know these things. We know there are poor and impoverished people in the world, some in our neighborhoods, in our towns, in our cities, but for sure in other parts of the world, other countries. But I'm still collecting my stuff. You know, my garage is still full of stuff I'd never used, but I'm not going to throw that away. That's mine, you know.
Right.
I'm spending my money on whatever I happen to spend it on I'm going to use and throw away, or it's entertainment for a couple hours and then I never have that back, or what. Like, we justify things in our own minds through self-indulgent, you know, kind of God wants me to have good things. Like, he doesn't want to do bad against me. But, you know, that's where we're tuning into earthly voices and letting them drown out God's voice.
My thinking kind of goes to, you know, when Jesus talks about the master who gives his servants, you know, money and asks them to bring back, and then he gets mad at the one that didn't invest and return more than
he buried it.
Right. Which it's like, well, if you read this, it's like, well, maybe burying it is what, I mean, I shouldn't be going out and trying to earn so much money, so much more, right? But it's like, it's, once again, I'm going to say it again, I'm getting kind of repetitive, but it's where your heart is in these. If I'm going out to gain more and more and more and more for me, then that's a problem. But if I'm working hard and doing what the Lord has given me and using these talents and earning a living that way, and my living might be more than someone else's, but it's where is my heart at in that living? I should now, because he's given me this and he's blessed me with this, therefore I should go and, you know, be generous to others and not hoard it, keep it to myself.
Store it up.
How are we using our talents?
Yeah.
And what, you know, in that example of that parable, the guy buried it, and then the boss came back and he's like, look, I know you collect, you reap where you do not sow and all that kind of stuff, so I didn't lose any money for you. And the boss gets mad, but he's like, you knew my will. You knew the things I do. You know what I'm about, and you didn't do those things. You could have just done something as easy as put it in the bank, get interest, but you didn't. You chose your path, your desires, your plan, when you should have chosen the master's plan.
Yeah. Also recognizing where those blessings, like Ty said, where your heart is, where they come from, and whose it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not yours.
I mean,
I said that earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ours. It's his, and we're guilty a lot of just getting stuff and saying, just because I have it and I spend it on whatever, you know, that's God's will.
Yeah.
but we have to start with the backwards at chapter 4. I know we're in chapter 5, but chapter 4, verse 7. Like Ty said, submit to God.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be first. That submission has to come first.
Yeah.
And that's the part that consistently overlooks.
Chapter 5, verse 5, it talks about, you know, you're living in luxury and self-indulgence. You're worried about yourself. You're not worried about others. And I think part of the thing that we have to be careful with, too, is, like, we can't be legalistic with it and be like, well, you know, if I spend this much on something, I mean, I think I'm good with that. You know, as long as I don't spend over $20,000 on a new car, like, I'm not being luxurious. That's just what cars cost now, you know. But that's, like, we can't put earthly boundaries on stuff like that. Like, we got to be listening to what God is telling, because God may tell you something that makes no sense in the world if you're seeking him truly. And, like, you know, you may have to sell your house, or you may have to do something and you know, downsize to something that's uncomfortable for you. But But if that's what God's telling you to do and you don't do it, well, now you're following your will, and that's being the self-indulgent. But being legalistic with it is, I think, easy for us because, well, if I don't spend over this much, I'm doing good,
Right.
or whatever.
Like God talks about waiting on the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Chapters like 7 and 8, being patient.
Yeah,
all good reminders.
verse 7, be patient until the coming of the Lord. Talks about the farmer having to be patient with the fruit of the earth until it comes in. But we want suffering and stuff to end immediately. We want that instant gratification, and things are hard. Let's change the circumstances right now. Let's move on to something else. Get out of this pain. But
I got this section highlighted. I got to read this one over and over and over again because I have zero patience.
establish your hearts. This is verse number 8. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another. Going back to that tongue, hard to tame. Do not grumble against one another, so that you may not be judged. The judge is standing at the door. And that's kind of going back to God watching us. He sees us, not only our actions and hears our words, but he knows the intention and the motive and the attitude behind those. Because God is watching us himself. It's not like he's got a liaison appointed over us or something. He's seeing it firsthand, and when we grumble or get mad, that he sees that. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy how sometimes we grumble or get mad with like a family member, a spouse, or the people closest to us when they had nothing to do with it. Somebody at work made us mad, or somebody driving home cut us off and made us mad. Now we're mad and we go take it out on a spouse or a kid or a friend or something that had nothing to do with those actions, but we're perpetrating that anger and that worldly stuff.
Misuse of that tongue.
Mm-hmm. Above all, this is verse number 12. Above all, brothers, do not swear either by heaven or earth or any other oath, but let your yes be your yes and your no be your no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. That's not a worldly value. We give answers a lot of times with caveats or conditions.
It's a yes as long as this happens.
Yeah.
Which I feel like also kind of comes back to being selfish. It's a yes as long as this happens, because that other part that has to happen is something that's going to benefit me.
Yes.
Yeah. In verse number 12, too, a way we may say that would be, if I'm lying right now, may God strike me down, or may God curse me, or may God do that is so dangerous, such a dangerous thing. We talked about,
that's someone without fear.
The fear of God that we don't know.
Exactly.
We're making God small. That's the on-demand God he's going to do just what I want him to do. Yeah. That is we shouldn't even be messing with that as joking or not, because that's, if you think about it, that's pretty scary. Let God strike me down. Let him do whatever. Let him curse me. When we did the Job study, Job wasn't too happy with the curses, and those were worldly curses. Those were curses from Satan or conditions from Satan. Right, that wasn't even God striking his hand against Job.
Right,
that. Yeah, that's we don't want to fall under the condemnation of God.
Right.
No.
But God actually, like we just said, God hears those things. He hears when we say that, and we take it so flippant. The on-demand God, and here's what's going to happen. Yeah. But just let your yes be. Let your talk stand on its own. Yes is yes. No is no. Doesn't need to be conditions. We don't need to, swear by heaven or swear by God or anything like that. Just, let my word is my bond. Let your word have some meaning and depth behind it. We're kind of at the end. We're going to wrap it up here over the next few minutes. This has been it's been a biggie. It's been a heavy. It's a 2-part episode, and we almost broke it up into 3 parts, but. We thought we're going to hit the highlights. We want you to go back and dig into this more, be honest with yourself. Ask questions of, what am I doing? What's my attitude? All these kind of things as you go back and read through the book of James and other books of the Bible. But, it's not, the book of James is not a book of anecdotes. It's really about having a deep relationship with God if we're being honest with ourselves and looking at our lives and how do our lives line up with God's will. Verse number 13, is any among you suffering? Let him pray. Is anybody cheerful? Let him sing praise. Is anybody sick? Let him pray. Whatever is going on, you need to be praying. Your first response should always be God. I want to praise him in good times. I want to seek him in bad times. I want everything to be about God. That's where my focus should be.
Correct.
Talks about sick people, calling on if you're sick, call the elders to come and pray over you. Something that stuck out to me on that one was you can't expect them to know everything that's going on with you. You have to reach out to them, seek help, let others come and help you, others that are like-minded and seeking God. Let them pray over you. Just don't assume that they're going to be pacing around waiting on you hand and foot and that kind of thing. You need to reach out to them.
I like 16. Therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed and restored. Not that you'll be judged or you should judge the person who's confessing these sins to you. And no, pray for them so that they may be healed and restored. Because a lot of times we pray, oh, God, pray for, he's struggling with that. It's like, no, that's not pray so that he will be healed and restored. And I don't know, that I feel like sometimes a lot of the times, we just get so caught up in, like you were saying, judgment of sins. Mm-hmm. And God's like, no, it's all bad.
Yeah. And we all sin. Yeah. We all sin. We want to make that comparison. Well, I'm not as bad as this. Did you hear what he just said? But yeah, my bad thought or bad word or whatever I said 10 minutes ago, it's the same sin, like sin is sin in God's eyes.
And it's not to say that even it's all bad, like it still gives us the challenge, like, hey, confess your sins. Like you've sinned. Mm-hmm. You've done wrong in the sight of the Lord. So confess it. It's
well, there's strength in numbers, whether you're doing something bad or something good. The more of you there are, the more you can hold each other accountable, help each other. If you're all focused on God and getting closer to him, well, yeah, confessing your sins to God and then to others is going to, they can keep you accountable. They can help you when you struggle. They're going to help you to get away from temptation, turn your focus to God when something comes around. But they can't do that if they don't know you're struggling, which goes back to you have to reach out to others. And then it talks about, right after what Ty was reading, talks about Elijah praying, and, Elijah called down fire from heaven, prayed and called down fire from heaven. He prayed and rain stopped for years and all this stuff. But he says Elijah had a nature just like us. Elijah, this is verse 17. Elijah was a man with a nature like ours. He was exactly the same as us, except he was lining his will up to God, and look at the power he had when he prayed. We have that same exact thing if we're in the same relationship with God.
Yeah.
But I think it was last week, maybe we talked about we'll pray for something, and like I'm doubting it before I even start to pray. Like, I know this isn't going to happen, but I'm going to say these words to you, God. I don't believe you're going to do it. Already lost.
Yeah, it's like just in case. I'm going to include this just in case.
Yeah. Already lost before I even started.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times we have heroes of the Bible, Elijah or David or Moses, all these, they're people. Yeah. They're created in the image of God, and so are we. Their nature is the same as our nature. They're no different. But do we have the type of faith they had?
It's a reference to faith of a mustard seed. Can move mountains.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Verse 19, this wraps it up. 19 and 20, my brothers, if anyone among you wanders from the truth and someone brings him back, let him know that whoever brings back a sinner from his wandering will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins. God can be using you to change someone else's eternal destiny. And that's a lot of responsibility for each of us, which ties all back into the rest, everything else we've been talking about, taming the tongue, having the correct attitude, not being selfish and arrogant, having a faith like Elijah had to be able to. That's a big difference too. Like Elijah wasn't commanding God to rain down fire or stop the rain. We want the on-demand God where we kind of command his actions. Elijah didn't have that type of attitude. Like we have to believe we have that power to change someone's eternal destiny. And that's not power coming from us. It's God working through us. But we have to believe God can work through us. He's going to He's going to perform actions through us. And a lot of times that little doubt monster gets in there. What do they say? You guys ever heard like one teaspoon of oil can ruin like an entire ship's water supply, like fresh water supply? One drop or one teaspoon or something like that. So it's like thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of water on like a Navy ship, right?
Yeah.
Their fresh water supply that's got to get them through their entire however many months they're going to be out at sea. And like one teaspoon of oil can ruin that entire batch of water.
Wow.
And that, like one little bitty piece of doubt can ruin our entire faith walk in that moment.
I think 19 and 20 kind of remind me of, it's not exactly the same thing, but like when Jesus on the cross and the thief on the cross comes and he asks for forgiveness, and it says, obviously this is talking about turning a sinner from the error of his ways. So, but he recognized that he was a sinner and turned from the error of ways, and it says, my brothers and sisters, if anyone of you strays from the truth and falls in error and one turns him back, let the one know that the one who has turned the sinner from the error ways will save that one's soul from death and covered a multitude of sins. So it's saying, like, his confession to Jesus right there in Jesus' prayer, it's like that, I'll see you in heaven. Like, he's like, you're pardoned for all the sins that you committed before.
A lifetime of sin, his entire life.
Yeah.
A lifetime of today you'll be with me in heaven.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have that same power through Jesus, through God working through us. Not me. I can't even save myself, much less anybody else. But I can be an instrument for God, and he will strengthen me with whatever I need in that moment.
Just a good reminder to not sit by and watch somebody that's backslidden or anything. Just to lift them up, come alongside them.
And it goes back to what Ty said, like you have to take the action, even if you don't know the person. Take the act. If you hear God speaking, like don't ignore it. Don't try and push it down and be, can't do that today. I'm late for a meeting, all this. Like we're always going to be able to come up with an excuse if we want to.
Yeah.
Or leave it for someone else to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because back to the time thing, we're not promised anything.
Exactly. Well, that's the book of James, the highlights and cliff notes, and you can unpack this. So much stuff in here. Like we said last week, you can read 10 verses a day for many, many days and reflect on them and spend a whole bunch of time. Let God speak to you through it. We hope you got a little something, a little highlights, and that you maybe take one of those and go back and pray about it, read about it, study about it some more with God, and let him speak to you some more. We all need to do that because we again, going back to our own will and our own passions waging war within us, we need to lay those aside and let God work in us. We need to seek him, enjoy hard times, bad times, good times, great times. We need to be seeking God. I guess we'll wrap up with the Bible verse. Somebody want to pull one from the book of James, or y'all got something else?
I can almost quote all of 1 Corinthians 13. Still on 12, but we're getting there.
Well, if nothing else is jumping out to you guys, I'm going to go with James chapter 4, verse 17, because it sticks out in my mind a lot. So sticks out in my mind so much, I Can't even read it correctly. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. So God's always watching. Can't get away from it.
Yeah.
We need to be seeking him, not ourselves. That was good. We brought the fire with the hot Cheetos. We brought the fire with the Book of James. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, man. It's a good one. Thanks, Ty.
No problem.
Yep.
Glad I
Thanks
could
for joining us.
Thanks for
be in
joining
person
us.
instead of on the phone.
For sure, man.
Well, we don't know who we'll have in person next week. It might be Ty again. He might come back. We don't know. But we want you to come back because we'll have another great episode for you. We love you. God loves you more. We'll see you then.
It's one of the
Deal.
greatest feelings ever, is taking those off your head.
You have not acid reflux. What is it? Crap. Like heartburn or whatever from that stupid Cheeto. I'm getting old.
Heartburn? It's not good, Ron.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to GPS to God. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe wherever you happen to listen or watch. And don't forget to turn on the notifications so you know when new episodes air.